It's the morning after at the Aster with Asher.
This is Open Work, a look inside the watch industry, a podcast from Collective Horology. I'm Gabe Riley, co-founder of Collective.
And I'm Asher Rapkin. I'm half awake.
Okay, well, maybe that's because Collective Horology is an independent watch retailer based in Ventura, California. Although today we're in Los Angeles in the Hollywood neighborhood /district /borough. And look, we carry a wide range of independent brands, including David Cando, Holton Ricks, Ming, and many more who were with us yesterday in Los Angeles at our open house event. To learn more about us and to check out our available inventory, just visit collectivehorology.com. It's the morning Asher. It's the morning Asher. It's the morning after, and Asher just declared he doesn't want to be here. He's tired. Why are you tired?
It's the morning after at the Aster with Asher.
It sure is.
That tells you exactly how exhausted I am. No, I only want to still be in bed because yesterday was one of the most fun days that we've ever had in this business, bar none. And for those who are listening, who weren't there, for those who were there, all in all, like both Gabe and I are filled with incredible gratitude. The thing about independent watches is, as I'm sure everyone who listens to this podcast is well aware, is that we are a dedicated but relatively dispersed and small bunch relative to the larger watch market. Yesterday, I don't know if we have the final head count, but it was well over 400 people who came through open house. And that's, we had people flying in from different parts of the country.
I met a father and a son, listened to this podcast, and came together from Boston.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Wow. Well, to those people, thanks.
Yeah.
But even
last year we had someone from Philly. I think that was the farthest traveled within the U.S., maybe New York. And of course, the brands come from Switzerland, from Austria, from all over.
But look, first of all, I mean, kudos to those guys. But also, even if you came from across the street.
A couple of people did.
Yeah. I am incredibly grateful and in awe and excited because it demonstrates, look, in LA, it's hard to get two people to show up to anything, let alone on time. And the fact that we had so many people that were jubilant and curious about independent watches in one room here in Hollywood is a testament to the excitement that this corner of the industry provides and to the camaraderie of this community. So I was really, really excited about that. What I found interesting, too, was the real curiosity that people brought to the space. I mean, look, watch shows, Gabe and I participated in all manner of watch shows, and some are more community oriented, some are put on by private groups, some are public, like Watch Time or Wind Up. And then, of course, we've produced different types of events over the last 10 years, give or take. But this one really had an incredible energy to it. The group that was there was kind and curious. And I think the curiosity is what really struck me. Lots of people were walking around looking at watches and not just, looping it and passing judgment on it or what have you, but being genuinely curious to talk to the representatives who had flown in to understand the why behind the watch. And that is incredibly inspiring for the entire collective team because, of course, that's what drives us. And I mean, look, I know I'm just sort of like waxing poetic here. It's just because I'm really happy to see how this played out and the energy in that room.
Yeah, well, it's a self-selecting group. I think that's one of the things that became really clear. I mean, look, we've done this for 2 years, but this was the biggest show by far. I mean, the demand was overwhelming. We had a line down the street. We had to close our RSVPs.
Yeah, thank you, by the way, for folks who did wait in line to get in, both, from me, from Gabe, from Jeff and Jimmy and Ellie and everyone at the Collective team. Thank you so much for your patience and for being so well-mannered and positive about having to wait for a few minutes. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Everyone got their royal pop in the end. Yeah. No, everyone who was in line, I don't think anyone ended up having to wait more than 20 minutes or so in line, and we had water for everyone and all that stuff. I went out there to do that, and we had folks out there. It was well organized. We hoped there wouldn't be a line because we don't want people to have to wait to get into something like this, but there was, and people were good sport about it. But I think, you were saying, like, when you do these events, particularly in LA, you have to you could like plan an event for 500 people and no one will show up. It's very, it's if like the sun isn't out.
If the sun is out, we had a cloudy day, so it played in our favor.
Yeah, or there's like, an accident on one of the freeways or whatever. But the attendance rate was extremely high, more than we thought was than we planned for. And I think it's because it's a self-selecting group, and the event's been smaller in the past. And, obviously it was most of the people who came the last couple of years were people we know. This was a bigger event. But I realized when you look at the brands on the roster, Armin Strom, Chapek, Dominic Renault, Fleming, J.N. Shapiro, Renault Tixier, Singer, Carl Suki, David Kando, Fierce, Holton Ricks, Ming, Sartori Biard, Speak, Marin. The people who are going to turn out for an event with those brands are very self-selecting. I was talking to one of the brands yesterday, to the guys from Speak Marin, and they were like shocked. They're like, I've never been to a watch show with like this much energy, and one with an audience who's like just so both curious, to your point, but also informed. Like they really knew what they were looking at. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I'm sure you do a lot of these. Like I find that really hard to believe. And he was explaining, well, a lot of our retailers aren't independent only focused retailers. So when they do an event like this, we may be doing like a showcase at a dealer along with like 10 other brands who are, more mainstream or not necessarily independent. And so the audience who shows up for those other brands is a much more casual audience. And
that's interesting.
It's good in the sense that when they come to speak, they're learning about something genuinely new and maybe a brand they haven't heard of, but they're not approaching it with the same level of like familiarity and information and education. So I think that dynamic made it really unique, which is you have a very self-selecting audience. You have to be on the wavelength for these brands, which are all kind of esoteric and left of center, to want to show up for an event like this. It's not like there's a Breitling or an IWC or someone like that, who's anchoring the event. It's inherently going to draw a crowd that's into this kind of oddball stuff.
Yeah. One thing that was interesting too, and admittedly, I'd like to say this was strategic, but I think it's more of just, it was like a practical reality for the space. Every brand had the same display. Everyone had the same table, the same signage,
except
et cetera.
the few brands who lined our everyone got the premium. Everyone got the same thing.
Exactly. The super ultra package.
That's right.
No, but everyone had the same thing. And what I really like about that is that actually, I think, strips away everything but the watch. And, when you have in one room David Kando's DC1, DC6, DC12, a Josh Shapiro Resurgence, and a, can I make you bleep me?
Sure.
And a, ooh, what's that? As well as a gaggle of watches from Armin Strom, a $500,000 resonance minute repeater, all in the same room, all at the same table. It really strips things away down to the essentials of the watches, which is fascinating because I think it also makes people...
They have nothing else to compete on with one another. Not that they're competing, then the watchmaking and their creative and their philosophical
that's what I'm getting
differences.
at. It's like watch speed dating, because you're basically sitting there and all that there is to do is look at the watch and discuss it. There's nothing else that's like circling it, in that, sort of like luxury vibe. It's just the work. And in that sense, it really reveals, at least to me, what we've always believed, but is absolutely true when laid bare, which is that these watches stand on their own, whether they're showcased in a marble-clad golden showroom or on a tabletop, because they're that strong and they're that good. What's also evident to me when because we retail all of these brands, but we don't have every one of their watches in our store at any time.
Yeah.
And when I got to walk around the floor and see, right before we opened, and see largely not everyone had everything, but like had a good representation of their brand, and got to see all of that.
Yeah.
It was really kind of mind blowing, when you walk from...
It's unusual to see, 4 David Kandos in one room, or the full Holton Ricks collection.
Yeah.
Or really anything from any of these brands.
Yeah. And there were some watches that I saw that like I had never seen in person. We had one brand, for example, that we don't retail, which is Fleming. And I had never seen both of their modern pieces in the metal before.
Mark II.
Yeah. And that was interesting, because it's not a thing that you can generally do.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, we're very lucky. We get to see this stuff at Watches and Wonders or Time to Watches.
Time to Watches?
Exactly. Or, any number of the professional shows we go to. But it's so rare that we're able to bring that. So that was really, I think, fascinating to me. And to that point, I think it was also revealing, because I think a lot of clients came thinking that they would be interested in one watch or another or curious about one or another. And then I can think of a few clients who decided to make purchases at the show that honestly I was sort of shocked by. Like, I didn't realize that was something you were into, which was equally eye-opening for me. And I think it's also just like good advice for collecting in general, which is this whole idea of, if you remove all external stimuli and you just look at pieces and decide what do you, Gabe, or do you, client A, B, or C really like, you can reveal some really unusual and special choices. Right, Mr. Brigade Chronograph?
Yes, that's true. So I was walking around the event. There's some media there as well. Our friend Stephen Pulverant was there. He's been a supporter of Collective from the very beginning, and so it was sweet to see. I mean, literally.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna make Stephen's ears burn here for a little bit, so I'm sorry about that, bud. But like, I aside from Stephen being like a colleague of ours and a personal friend and people that we really, like a genuinely good guy. Yeah. I mean, truly like the best guy. I was reading Stephen's work and watching his stuff when we were, on Hodinkee for a decade, for a long time before we became friends. And it really means a lot to us when we see, that continue on. And I was really touched that he was there and was, was shooting and supporting the group.
The very beginning. I mean, we recorded a Hodinkee radio with him back in 2019 when that was the first, that.
Oh my God, did he host that episode?
Yeah, we recorded that with him. We flew to New York because we had the.
I remember that. I didn't remember
he hosted.
God, that. Yeah. I'm embarrassed to listen to that podcast.
Yeah, I've re-listened to it. It's actually not so bad.
Really?
Yeah, I had a crazy flub in the middle. Like, I just lost my train of thought in the middle of something, of some question or whatever. And graciously, they edited that out. So I'm forever grateful for that. But he's seen us, from the moment we started this to the moment we started here in LA. I mean, he moved to LA. At least just a few months after I moved down to Southern California. So he's seen Collective down here from the very beginning.
Yeah, he came to the Collective garage. He's one of the first guests we had there.
The watch yards, the Collective studios, whatever you want to call it. So he's seen everything, and he was like, man, this is really turned into like a destination watch event. Like that's really cool. The other person I bumped into was Ariel Adams.
Oh yeah.
And he had something very interesting to say that never occurred to me. He's like, you have a very unusual energy in this show. And I was like, oh, is it because like the brands are just so unusual? Like, it's rare to see these, like we were just saying.
Is it the secondhand smoke from the weed shop across the street?
No. And he was like, the thing that is shocking to me is that you just let the brands talk directly to customers. And I was like,
why wouldn't we?
Like, what? Like, why wouldn't we? He's like, a lot of retailers, more traditional retailers, when they do these sorts of things, they're very leery of the brands chatting directly with customers because from the perspective of the retailer, and this, I mentioned I went to JCK to speak on a panel about kind of the future of watch retail. One of the things I was talking about is like mainstream retailers are really under threat from the established brands because they're being commoditized.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's like if they have a multi-brand boutique that's successful, they'll get pressured to, open a mono-brand boutique and take their name off the store. Or, the brand will just open their own mono-brand boutique in their region. Or the brand will start selling online. And so there are all these pressures that conspire against traditional retailers to sort of commoditize their brand and disrupt their relationship with their client, which is the biggest leverage they have with brands. Is like, I have clients for your watches, right? And he was like, so for that reason, a lot of retailers really don't want the brands talking directly with clients. Like they're afraid, that brand might turn around and open their own boutique in the market or something like that and try to poach the client. And we've heard from sales folks who work at these multi-brand boutiques that a lot of times the brands will use registration, so they'll offer extended warranty if you register because they want the customer CRM, and then they start reaching out to the customers directly to sell to them. So he was like, it's like very refreshing to see like a retailer that actually trusts their brands and like doesn't need to get in the middle of it, and then therefore allows the customer to have this direct experience with a brand and with the people from the brand, that's very unusual for retailers to provide access to. And it, of course, never occurred to me that that was a thing. And I think it speaks to the benefit, another benefit of being an independent watch retail, which is what I told Ariel. I was like, well, of course we trust them. We get to pick who we work with.
Yeah.
It's not like we carry 6 Swatch brands and like we have no say over the people we're working with because this brand was forced on us or we've been carrying them for decades and like we need the business. Like we pick and choose who we work with. So we trust everyone we do. And so it was interesting to me. It never occurred to me that that was part of what maybe created that unique energy in the room, was the dynamic to go directly to the brand unfettered.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Do you trust them?
No,
now I'm wondering, do I even trust these people?
I do. I do. And I think, look, I think that's exemplified by the evening after. After the event, there were a bunch of dinners. And one of the dinners that happened, you hosted, which was with all of the representatives and watchmakers from all of the brands and collective staff all together. And think about that for a minute. Could you imagine a dinner with like a Rolex rep, an Omega rep, and a Patek rep, and like, it's like the start of a joke.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't,
on all sides of me, I had reps from all of these different brands.
Yeah.
Some of whom had worked for each other's brands in the past, which was interesting, and like, or worked with each other at other brands, or it was.
But my point of that isn't personally malign any rep from like a big company. Like there's tons of really nice people, but they just don't think about camaraderie in the same way.
That's true. There's camaraderie among independent watch brands.
And like, sure, of course there's competition, right? If client A buys this watch and not that watch, then one brand got revenue that day and another brand didn't. But the thing is, and this is how I feel about independent retailers in general, is that if there is a really good independent retailer who delivers an exceptional experience in independent watches, right? Let's say somebody has a great experience buying from Jeremy Aster, great experience from Jonathan Seidel, or from Martin Pulley, or Brandon Skinner, or Leon Adams.
You got
or
any more? Come on, man.
Yeah, I'm ranking. I'm really spitting them out. But let's say
Tim Jackson.
Yeah, there we go. But my point is, like, if you had a good experience buying from any of those guys, that I think means that you had a good experience buying an independent watch.
Yes.
And that's just good.
Yeah, that's good for us.
And I think that was really clear from that dinner, where everybody was, there was, at the far end of the table, we saw a deep conversation between Armand Biard and Michael Holtenrex.
Yeah, I ran into Armand just before we recorded here in the lobby, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to go have some breakfast with Michael Holtenrex now.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
they're essentially direct competitors. In a sense, they're not really, but like if you were to look at it from like the, market segmentation sort of perspective, they are. And it's not like, to your point, the rep from IWC and Omega are going to go out to breakfast the next morning.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this camaraderie in indie watchmaking that I think also contributes to that vibe.
Totally.
They want to see each other succeed.
Totally. And I think that was interesting, to say the least. I'm glad we changed the format of the show this year. We moved to a different space within the venue that we've used for years, which is the Aster here in Hollywood. And that, I think this space not only allowed for more brands to participate, which is great, but it also felt more airy, better lighting, etc. And we saw people spilling out to hang out too, which I thought was equally awesome. People getting to meet one another and spend time with one another.
Yeah, the pool deck proved to be a great location to hang out for the disinterested partners, spouses.
Yeah, lots of kids. There are kids on the pool deck. But yeah, I think that was really fascinating to me, and it also allowed me to be able to go hands on with some watches that I sell regularly, but I don't get to like physically hold often, like a Dominique Renault Pulse 60, or a Mirrored Force Resonance in gold. These watches are not easy to get. They take a long time to make. And, carnet pieces are few and far between. So, being able to go over there, Lord knows, my God, we had the Armin Strom minute repeater, the Resonance minute repeater in the office for about a day before the show. I must have chimed that thing like at least 20 times because how do you not?
Yeah.
If you have, let's be honest, you have a you have a $500,000 minute repeater in your office, I feel like it's inappropriate to simply not chime it.
To be honest, I was too afraid to touch that thing. I'm not messing with any of the controls.
Well, actually, you know what's cool about, I mean, there's a lot of things that are cool about that watch, but you want to know what's really cool about that watch to me is it's really kind of foolproof. Like the way they designed the ability to switch functions, you know, because that watch can either chime the actual time or you can put it into essentially demo mode, 12:59. You can essentially put it into, you know, like demo mode basically. And the way you do it is you basically just take the minute repeater slider and you just click it downwards and
changes the mode.
Yeah. And it has like a detent that feels kind of similar to like when you depress like a really nice chronograph. So it's just like click. And then there's a little indicator on the dial that changes from red to white or white to red to show you what mode it's in. And red being essentially demo mode and the 12:59 mode and demo mode, and white being the actual time. But it's once you sit there and you read the manual for a minute repeater, it actually is very easy to execute and really beautiful in action. You know, because not only do you get to see the gongs, you know, which are exposed on the dial, as is the resonance complication, but you also get to see the governor, which is incredibly cool, which is spinning right beneath the gongs.
That may be the coolest visual element.
Yeah, the whole thing is just a miraculously designed and engineered watch. But anyway, you know, just fabulous to be able to spend time with these pieces. I mean, that's a watch that, like, the only time we're ever going to see that again is in Geneva or if a client orders it. That's it. I mean, you know, that's not a watch that's going to sit in a display.
Yeah, I had that watch in my possession to deliver it back to Claude Greisler. So actually the day before the event, Claude and I recorded an episode of the Watches of podcast. So coming soon to a podcast player near you and to YouTube is 30 minutes or so of me and Claude talking about Armin Strom, his background as a watchmaker. Interestingly, like why he chose to kind of take over a brand. Like, you know, Armin Strom was Mr. Armin Strom, a watchmaker, and a lot of young watchmakers, you know, aspiring to strike out on their own, like do so under their own name or their own brand. And here's someone who did it under the name of another watchmaker, which I think is really unusual in independent watchmaking. So we chat about that. But in any event, so I had the minute repeater on me, and I was like, the second I see Claude, I'm giving that to him because I don't want to be responsible for $500,000 worth of watches. And he takes it out of the case and he's like, he's like, this is the best. I told my watchmakers, this is going to be the best way to test the watch. They had sent the watch essentially around the world. So it arrived to us from another retailer who had it.
And wanted to make sure it survived, basically.
And had been to media and press. Yeah. Basically, like once Watches and Wonders wrapped, they've sent that watch around the world. Yeah. And he was like, this is the best test of the watch. And
what a cool way to think of it.
Picks it up and he's like, everything still works.
Yeah.
which is amazing.
Well, it is funny because sometimes we get,
how many times do you think it was demoed?
No, but that's a really cool thing. Like,
it's people who barely knew what they were doing.
It's so funny that you say that because sometimes we get a Carnet watch and, like, you know, or a prototype more specifically, and like something's funky with it because it's just how prototypes are. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, the detente on the
or
crown.
These show watches, like, you know, someone pulled the crown out or, you know, snapped something.
Yeah,
or whatever.
It happens. And I used to get like so like precious about that, where I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, you know, the watch, it appears to be overwound or this or the other. And of course, to your point, like about 100 people are handling it, like something happened. But to your point, like that is a really great way to test it. Like, can the watch handle that? And, you know, getting that feedback back to the brands is also really key and critical. So that was pretty interesting on the whole. It was also fabulous to see, and I mean, you know, this is our brand mix for sure, but again, cool to see in the metal. You know, some of the brands that we carry are very expensive and very high end. Let me rephrase that. Are very expensive. Everything we carry is high end. But what's great is, like, when I look at some of the more affordable pieces, right? Like from Sartori Biard, from Fears, from Ming, and from Holthenrichs, these watches hold their own, you know?
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to bleep me again, you know, but like there's a forthcoming release from Fears, which is what was that?
Huh?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And you know, that watch is fantastic. And it's the high end for Fears, you know, it's like 28, it'll be like around $28,000 or so.
Well, who knows? Don't commit to that, man. Who knows?
I said or so.
Okay. Yeah, anything could change.
Somewhere in that range. But boy, does it punch above its weight. And
it's an incredibly.
I mean, both you and I looked at each other and were like, we both want one.
Yeah.
And
well, when I saw the rendering of it like 3 years ago in a basement in Geneva, I told Nicholas I was.
Yeah, me too.
In.
I want one too. And I look at that and I'm like, that watch holds its own against other $50,000 or $60,000 watches in the room. Not, because it's like one for one the same or the finishing is identical or whatever. It's because the purity of the idea is so well executed that it is perfect for what it is. It's perfect. And
it's this watch you look at and you're like, holy shit, it's a Fears.
It's a what?
But and not in a way that you're like sort of you're surprised, but not like, oh, Fears could never do this. You're surprised like delightfully. It's like,
yeah,
this is their take on that format of watch, and oh my god, it does both things, and it's really successful, and it has its own take on it.
Yeah,
like it's quintessentially its own thing while doing something extremely
and a client placed an early order for one.
Yeah,
because I think he, same thing. It's like I know this client's collection.
Yeah,
he has a wide range of incredible watches, and this totally fits in. And he made that choice based on the purity of the execution, and I really, really, really love that. Not only about collectors, especially in the independent space, but about these brands that are deciding to make the right watches for them, not lock themselves into or be locked in by a holding company into a certain price class or certain level of production.
I want to give some credit so absolutely flowers to all those brands. They were as busy as anyone else, and people who went to the Holthenrichs table or the Fears table or Sartori Biard or Ming were at all the other tables. But I also want to give credit to the other brands, because you're right, there are brands there that operate at the very high end. We had a $500,000 watch, as you mentioned, from Armin Strom. We had David Candot watches there, which go over $300,000. We had high-end watches from so many other brands who just generally operate at a high price point. And I've heard from other retailers that a lot of what they deal with in their store and with these events is drama from the brands over which other brands are participating, who their brand is next to in the store, or whatever it might be. And frankly, just a lot of snobbery from a lot of more kind of like expensive watch brands, and sort of looking down their nose on brands who offer things at a lower price than they do. There was none of that from any of the brands.
I don't think of that as snobbery, but I do.
I do. I think of it as snobbery, but
I think it's insecurity.
Maybe it's insecurity, but who knows? None of that from any of the brands there. They were all genuinely happy to be there. They were all genuinely curious about one another's work.
Yeah.
Which, again, I find really refreshing, because you and I have heard from other retailers how many headaches they need to deal with from particularly more expensive brands over which other brands they carry, where they're placed in a store or at an event, and adjacency and all this stuff is, and like, oh, I don't want to be next to this brand.
That brand smells.
None of that. So like, like good behavior on all sides here. I mean, amazing group of people who came out, amazing folks from the brands who truly flew halfway around the world to be here, and great attitude, curiosity, and enthusiasm genuinely on all sides.
Yeah. So look, obviously we're going to keep doing this. This was our third year. We're going to keep growing this. We're going to keep building it. We are deeply grateful to everyone who came. Before we wrap, I do want to point out one thing. On this podcast, you generally only ever hear from me and Gabe. Occasionally, Jeff Souter, our sales director, will join us, but there are other people who work at Collective who you may or may not know. There are. And I want to give an explicit shout out to our fantastic operations lead, Ellie, who executed the show and really built it and ran with it this year. So for anyone who was at that show, anyone who had a good time and was able to enjoy and not even think about a thing, that was because of Ellie's fantastic work. So even if she's not on the pod right now, I just want to give a big thank you to her for her just absolutely fantastic execution.
Yeah, here. Well done.
Shall we leave it there?
let's leave it there. This, of course, is Open Work. It's a production of Collective Horology. You can find us online at collectivehorology.com. And as always, make sure you get in touch with your questions, your feedback, and suggestions. We love to hear that stuff. And to do that, you can email podcast@collectivehorology.com. Holy shit, it's a